What's up, guys? Welcome to the special video edition of the Derek Diamond Experience, and I am joined along with my special guest, programming director at Pensacon, writer, filmmaker, and friend, Mr. Steve Wise. Steve, how you doing?
I'm very good.
Good. It's been a while since we've talked. I know we've only talked maybe a handful of times since Pensacon. So it's. I know we've both been busy, but I did want to start off by asking, how did this year's Pensacon go compared to years past? Like, what were some maybe changes that were made? Because you've been involved since the beginning.
I have been involved. This is my second year that I've been programming director. I was taking care of some other duties the first year. But one of the biggest changes is that we had, I don't know if it's a change, but we did a little bit better job, I think, bringing in moderators, and we had a really awesome crew this year, and I was really proud of how our moderators did.
Excluding one that's sitting to your right. But as someone who had never really done anything like that before, I knew you had a class you taught. We had two different sessions leading up to Pensacon, and I thought, as someone who had never done anything like that before, it was really helpful, because you got to really go over the rules of what to do and what not to do. And then also doing kind of a mock panel where you're also the guest as well as the moderator. Just kind of putting yourself in that situation is the best way to do things.
Well, I found that in any type of training situation, if you experience kind of the other side of it, then you know what the other person is experiencing also. But it does help when everybody kind of goes through this and helps each other. You know, you learn best by doing and by getting feedback from the other people who are also doing, instead of just one person up there lecturing.
Absolutely, yeah. So let's talk about Pensacon next year. And we're a couple of months removed from this year, and you guys are already planning big stuff. I mean, you guys have Walter Koenig from the original Star Trek. You have Jake the Snake Roberts, WWE Hall of Famer, Sylvester McCoy, the Seventh Doctor. So you've really got a nice variety of guests, and that's something I think that Pensacon does really well, is catering to different fandoms.
Well, we try to do that, even though we call ourselves a Comic-Con, and we do have a really good selection of comic book artists and writers. And comic books are a major part of what Pensacon is, but we are kind of an all-inclusive fan experience, as opposed to just focusing on science fiction or just focusing on anime or any particular genre. We try to have a little bit of representation of every fandom as much as we can, and that includes wrestling. I mean, some people kind of question, why do you have wrestlers? Well, wrestlers are kind of modern day live action superheroes. You know, they dress in costumes, they have heroes and villains and a storyline that plays out, and kids look up to them and really get excited when they have their fights. And so, you know, it is something kind of a little bit different than the average, you know, celebrity, but it does hit a fandom.
A funny story about the wrestling thing is, I don't think I told you this. I was out in the back parking lot where they had the ring set up, you know, getting some footage of it, and they're having this big battle royal, and there's like 10 people in the ring, and there are no mats around it. It's just concrete. And this guy gets thrown out over the top rope and lands on his shoulder, and you just hear,
"Oh my goodness, I didn't even know about that."
Yeah, and I'm just like, is he okay? Like, can't you guys get some mats or something? I was like, that was crazy. But no, I've watched it since I was 12, and I think of it as a different form of theater, a more physical type of theater, really.
Well, it is. It's very theatrical, and like I said, it appeals to those people that really like to see the action, and but it's not really get into the sport, so perhaps boxing or even MMA. It's you get into the fantasy of it.
Now, how did you get involved with Pensacon?
Well, I kind of got brought in through the back door, so to speak. I was originally hired to produce a short film called Girl from Iceland through Kinematic Entertainment, and it was just a contract type of thing, just for that film. And then that kind of spread into another film, some Pensacon commercials, and then I was brought in on staff for Kinematic Entertainment, and next thing I know, they're giving me jobs to do for Pensacon. And, I had to coordinate all the transportation, getting the celebrities from the airport to the hotel, and from the hotel to the base center, and worrying about parking and worrying about trolleys and, all that coordination. But what was really cool is that first year, I was the one who was at the airport greeting the celebrities. And a friend of mine actually flew in from California and was helping me out. And the two of us were the first people that the celebrities saw.
Awesome.
Yeah. I can't necessarily claim that I was the first person they would see, because
Just one of them.
Because my friend would be, up. There's 2 stories of the airport, and Eric would be up there at the second story, the second floor, to kind of wave people down, and I was down at the little kiosk at the bottom of the escalator. But and I'd make sure that they got into their vehicles, and that was kind of an interesting experience, because there were major weather concerns.
The fog.
Well, not just the fog, but there were terrible thunderstorms in Houston. Mm-hmm. And a lot of our flights coming from California had a layover in Houston, and so they couldn't get through there. So that was keeping them from arriving on time. We had 4 flights that had mechanical problems.
Oh, boy.
And, Mike Hensley texted me and said, call Parker Stevenson at this number and find out where he is. So I had Parker's cell phone number, and I called him up, and he was sitting on an airplane in Los Angeles, where he had been for 2 hours, because there was a problem with one of the flaps. And there were 3 other celebrities that were on the flight with him. And then the fog hit, and around 5 p.m., and we had still flights coming in until 10 p.m., and no airplane could land at the airport. And
Wow.
So they were being diverted to Mobile or Fort Walton Beach, or back to Atlanta, or back to Dallas, or who knows where. We didn't even know where Priscilla Barnes was sent. So that was our first year.
Well, I remember leaving work that day and then getting on the 110 bridge and just seeing the mass wall of fog. Yeah. And I'm just like, they're not very happy right now.
It was a scary experience, because we didn't really know what to expect from the first year. And, we were hoping for about 5,000 attendees. We had 11,000. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly it was like, do we have any celebrities? Because of all these problems with the airplanes.
Yeah.
And it was just before day one even began, we were having to scramble, and it was very stressful.
But it all worked out, and it was a huge success.
It did. It all worked out, and people liked what we were able to put together. I mean, we were, it looked smooth to the attendees. At least that's what the feedback we got. But man, behind the scenes, we were running around with what are we going to do here? Trying to put out a lot of fires.
I can understand that, because the way we do things, like during baseball games, is that things can be so chaotic in the press box or in the office, but if things look smooth out in the stadium, no one's the wiser. Right. So the important thing is you just make sure the fans have a good time. Well,
not only the fans, I mean, trust me, the fans are really important, and the attendees. That's our goal is to give them an experience that is unlike any other, and is a.
We've also got the vendors, the celebrities, artists, things, and people like that.
So yeah, we strive to give everybody a great experience, but we had, starting from the first year, we've set a reputation with our guests, and not just celebrities, but even our comic book artists, our authors, our cosplayers, and we shine a spotlight on several local cosplayers every year. Mm-hmm. But we try to treat them better than anybody else does. We provide really good food in the green room. We give them transportation wherever they need to go. We treat them it's not that we bow down to them, but we treat them like human beings.
Right.
And from what I hear, and I haven't experienced this directly, but I hear that many other conventions, and I'm talking about major conventions, they don't really do that. And it does make a difference. And if the guests are happy, they're going to make our attendees happy.
Right. No, I think from what I've heard, I mean, I've talked to artists and even some celebrities when I've done interviews. They all say that Pensacon is like the premier con of, treating guests well. Like, I talked with Claudia Wells the last day of the convention. She said, I have never been treated so well at a convention.
Nice. She's one of many this past year that I never got a chance to meet.
No, she was great. It was funny you mentioned the Parker Stevenson story when Mike Ensley just says, call him at this number. And you're probably thinking, I'm supposed to just call Parker Stevenson.
Yep.
Well, I was supposed to interview her for my show, and we had been...
Parker Stevenson?
Claudia Wells.
Okay.
Claudia Wells, sorry. Should have elaborated more. But anyway, I'm emailing Claudia Wells back and forth, and she's like, I haven't been able to really check my email, so here, just text me. And I'm like, I'm supposed to just text Claudia Wells from Back to the Future.
Yeah.
So, okay. And that's how we set it up. So
yeah. Talking about Walter Koenig, the first year, poor guy was really sick. And he had throat infection and just really bad. And he couldn't talk the whole weekend. And of course, his flight got sent to Mobile, and then they had to drive him in. On the way out, there was weather problems also, and his flight got canceled. And this poor guy is like sick as a dog, and he had to stay an extra day in Pensacola. And he and Walter Jones from Power Rangers had the same flight. We had to drive them to Fort Walton Beach, and he had to fly out from there. And so I had Walter Jones's phone number and to be able to check on him, because when they got back to Los Angeles, Walter Jones drove Walter Koenig back to his house.
Wow.
And so Walter Jones texted me and said, Walter's home, he's fine. So just a little thing like that. It's like, okay, a Power Ranger just drove Chekhov back home and is texting me to let me know. Okay, yeah, this is...
So the Black Ranger let you know that Chekhov made it safely.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Now, you mentioned you're the programming director at Pensacon. What exactly is your role as program director?
Basically, I'm in charge of scheduling and trying to make sure that all of the panels happen when they're supposed to happen, and that they're laid out in such a way to where it makes sense. For instance, we don't want multiple Star Trek theme panels happening at the same time.
Right.
So I maintain the master schedule. I mentioned earlier the moderators, so I trained and scheduled the moderators, making sure that there's kind of a good fit with what each moderator's talents and skills are,
right,
and their interests also, to the panels that they're going to be doing. Trying to make sure that the special events are happening on time, maintaining the website, maintaining, there's just a lot that goes into keeping up with that. If you receive our annoying emails that get sent out fairly often, that's one of my duties is putting those together and getting those sent out. So, I also usually end up editing and this is not part of the programming side, but the commercials. We do all those in-house, and, we take turns directing and producing and writing them. I usually end up editing them all. So there's a certain production aspect that goes into my job also.
Right. But the editing's got to be fun, though, because, that's what I do at my job as well. It's always like putting together a puzzle.
Well, and up to this point, I'm not sure what we're going to be doing from this point forward, but the last 3 years we've done creative, fun commercials, and those have been just a blast to do. Even when we're out in 100-degree temperature with 100 cosplayers in costume.
I remember that day.
Yeah,
yep.
that was interesting.
Yeah, but that's Florida weather for you.
Yeah.
In September, it'll still be 90, 95 degrees. when it's supposed to be like, oh, isn't it fall now? And you're just like, nope, still got another month of hot weather.
Well, we actually thought it was going to be raining that day, and we knew it was going to be hot in the morning, but we figured, okay, there's going to be rain sometime early afternoon, and we can take a break for lunch. It'll rain. It'll
Cool things off.
It'll cool things off. We can go out and continue. It did not rain. Just not a cloud in the sky the whole day, and the sun just beat down on us. And about midday, we had to cancel the shoot and reschedule because it was just too brutal. We had people collapsing because of the heat, and it's like, no.
Because I remember I had to work an event that day, and then I drove straight from the stadium to Cantonment where the commercial was being filmed, and then you guys were packing up, and I was like, did something happen? And you were like,
you were
oh, we
working
had to
on the
cancel.
camera crew.
Yeah. So it was just crazy how stuff like that happens. But I mean, the few times I've been involved with the commercial shoots, they've been a lot of fun. Because I mean, you get to do creative things with stuff you grew up watching. So I mean, you can't beat that.
Well, the first commercial shoot that we did, and actually most of the subsequent ones, but never forget the first one because I'm out on a beach directing a stormtrooper, and then we went to a play. This I don't know, consider I guess a bar.
I'm trying to remember which commercial you're talking about.
The one at play, the one with all the.
Oh yeah.
Anyways, I was directing Darth Vader.
Yeah.
And it's like, I grew up watching Star Wars and being a huge Star Wars fan, and here I am directing Star Wars characters. Now, granted, it wasn't David Prowse in the suit.
Yeah.
Jonathan McIntosh, who is an awesome Darth Vader, by the way.
Shout out to Jonathan McIntosh.
but it still was kind of a cool experience. Very surreal. The last 3 years have been very surreal.
And fun.
And fun.
And
yes.
very fun.
Sometimes stressful.
Well,
but it's a fun stress.
That goes with any line of work.
Yeah.
So you've got 2 books here. Tell me about these 2 books you have.
Well, if I can plug these books, please. Well, first off, I'm attempting to be a writer, and I'm actually working on a novel right now that is taking far too long to get through, but I did put together a book of short stories. It's an anthology, and it is called Portals of the Mind. It is available on Amazon.com. But it's just some stories I've written. Some of them were ones that I dusted off from years ago and did a polish on them. Some were fairly recent, and hopefully it's kind of a fun read. Most people that read it commented that they enjoy the stories. Some science fiction, some horror, some fantasy, Western. Just it's kind of an eclectic.
Variety.
Mm-hmm. And but the other thing is, I'm a screenwriter, and my co-writer Lee Shapiro. Shout out to Lee. He and I had written several scripts together, and for a while there, we were flying back and forth to Los Angeles and pitching scripts, and coming very close to getting some produced. Unfortunately, never quite got that far. But anyways, we had a connection with Warner Brothers, and in reaction to Batman and Robin, which yes, it was good many years ago now. We pitched an idea to Warner Brothers, and they said, go ahead and write the script. So we wrote it, and 2 years later, we were still negotiating with them because they were not sure, based on the failure of Batman and Robin, what they were going to do with that series. And, as we kept being reminded by the president of the company, the script was sitting on his desk. But ultimately, they decided, now we're going to reboot the series. And just recently, Lee and I decided, well, we keep getting listed on like IFC and Screen Crush and some other websites that our script is listed as one of the best unproduced Batman scripts. And so, let's put it out there for people to read. And so we went ahead and did a little self-publishing. And so we have Batman Dark Knight. Yes, and it is creatively spelled as I think it was Screen Crush was making fun of the way we spelled it, but but we've gotten some really good feedback on it. And one of the characters is Man-Bat, who was created by Neil Adams, and I had the opportunity to actually give Neil a copy of the script, which was very scary.
He can be a little intimidating to talk to.
No, he's nice. I mean, all my interactions with him.
The guy's such a legend.
He's a legend,
and so you're just kind of like, what do I say to him? Because you see all this stuff that he's worked on, and you're just like, oh my god.
Well, I've had the good fortune to talk with him multiple times over the last few years, and so I approached him this year and kind of, very meekishly told him about, just basically what I just described, the history behind it, and told him that, we went ahead and did just kind of publishing, we published this just to be able to basically give to people, in a nice presentable way. And asked if he would mind if I gave him a copy. And he was actually really thrilled. Marilyn, his wife, came up to me later and said that he was just really kind of very, very
appreciative
touched by that.
That's awesome.
And which I hope is the truth. I hope he didn't say, "What is this kid?" I mean, I'm just throw it away. But one of the things he pointed out, when we brief discussion, was people always think of Man-Bat as a villain. He's not a villain, and I was really glad that he said that, because that was our approach. In our screenplay, Man-Bat is not a villain. Kirk Langstrom is a victim of circumstance, and actually a victim of Kirk Langstrom, or I'm sorry, Jonathan Crane, who's Scarecrow, because Crane actually turns him into the Man-Bat. And through the course of the story, he struggles with his humanity and tries to overcome the animal beast-like instinct in him to become man again. And so that's one of the major themes in the story, is what does it mean to be human as opposed to a monster. And
sounds like a really good read.
I hope so.
Well, I have a copy that I got from you at 3 Alarm Comics last year. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I do want to. I do plan on reading it. Last con question I wanted to ask you before we get into some movie reviews, because that's the thing I've been looking forward to the most. You got to go to AltCon, and you were a guest. How was it being a guest at a con as opposed to either going as a fan or working behind the scenes at one?
Well, it was nice because, they put me up in a hotel room, which I was very appreciative of. Got to sit behind a table and sell my books and sign the books. So signing autographs is kind of a new thing. This was actually the second time I did that, because the first time was at 3 Alarm's birthday bash in December.
Yeah, it was in December.
Because I think it was right before my birthday, actually, or right after my birthday, which is in December. So it's a little different experience. Now, I ended up doing a couple panels there, and one of them talking about Batman. So I was able to conduct my own panels as opposed to having to be in charge of, interviewing people or being putting the program together.
Right.
So that was kind of nice for me to be able to just say, okay, here's my thing. Let me do it. AltCon was a very small convention. It's a little different than Pensacon. So it's not really the same comparison. I don't anticipate being a guest at a convention the size of Pensacon anytime soon. But,
well, you never know.
Yeah, you never know. But maybe a couple years.
Maybe so.
Yeah.
Let's get into some movie discussion.
Sure.
Are
you sure?
Yeah, those things that we watch, that we like to watch from time to time. Staying on subject with Batman. Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. Beavis, yeah, I love that term you did on Facebook. So it came out a couple of months ago with mixed reviews, to say the least. What did you think of it?
Mixed reviews is pretty accurate. Yeah. Okay, well, as I said when I first saw the movie, I didn't hate it. I almost felt like I had to endure it. It while sitting through it, I didn't really feel like I was enjoying it. Not that I didn't not appreciate the what it took to make it. Obviously, there was a lot of craft and skill that went into it, and Zack Snyder, for me, the director, has been mostly hit. I haven't been one of the Zack Snyder haters. That said, I've never seen Sucker Punch, but everything I'd seen from him up to this point, I was a fan of. Other than perhaps Man of Steel, but even that I generally liked. There were just some issues that I had.
It had its flaws, but overall it was a pretty good movie.
The camera work was one of the biggest flaws. That was a purely directorial decision. There were some story issues I had with that, but overall I was like, okay, I accept this as a decent Superman movie. With Batman versus Superman, or Batman v Superman, I don't know. It seemed to me like a compilation of a bunch of scenes from various comic books stitched together without much rhyme or reason. And being familiar with at least some of the comic books, it's like, oh yeah, that scene's from such and such. Oh, there's that. But it didn't feel cohesive. And I don't know if the upcoming director's cut on video will solve some of those problems, but the plot just was kind of random, and the character motivations felt all over the place. It's just like, why is this character doing that? Why is Batman doing? Why is Superman doing that? Why is Lex Luthor doing this? Why what is Wonder Woman doing? I don't know. It's not explained. It's just they're doing things, and then suddenly they're doing something different. And to me, it actually felt like Batman Forever in that regard, because Batman Forever, I actually spoke with Lee Batchelor, who he and his wife, Janet, wrote the original draft of Batman Forever before Akiva Goldsman got a hold of it. And he said that when he saw the movie, he basically was saying the same thing. Why is that happening?
Yeah,
that wasn't in my script. So that's kind of the feel that I had. That it's like I don't understand why the characters are doing the things that they're doing, and so that was a huge flaw. But generally the tone, like I said, I wasn't having fun with the movie. I appreciated the artistry in it. It looked beautiful. The acting generally was pretty good. I really liked Ben Affleck as both Bruce Wayne and Batman. I can't wait to see his solo Batman film. Wonder Woman was great. I can't wait for her solo film. I really am not looking forward to Justice League. I was like, because is this going to have that same tone where it's all dark and gloomy and nobody smiles and there's no humor and just,
yeah,
and so that was my feelings on it.
Yeah, and I agree for the most part. I mean, I really liked Ben Affleck as Batman. Like, I wasn't one of those that really knocked him whenever he was cast, because he has the look for the part. He's going to do well because he's a Batman fan. He's going to do his research on the character. He's really going to pour his heart and soul into doing it, because this is like a dream come true for him. Yeah. Seeing Wonder Woman on screen for the first time was really cool, because when she lowered the shield, that was the one time in the theater that everyone just erupted, because it was like you finally see the Trinity on screen.
Yeah. When the three of them were on screen together,
they should have saved that for the movie. They should not have put that in any trailer.
I know. Well, not to mention that the trailer kind of putting that in there kind of ruined the whole Batman versus Superman, because they're now friends. Okay.
Yeah. They're now best friends.
Yeah.
I thought the
Martha.
Oh boy. What did you say? I thought the pacing of the story was awful. Yeah. It was very all over the place, and it was a little too long. It felt over 2.5 hours. You can make a long movie and it doesn't feel that long.
Civil War.
We'll get to that in a second. But this felt really long. But all in all, I actually liked the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I enjoyed everyone in their role as their respective characters, and I do hope they just add a little more humor and maybe not so much gloom and darkness.
Well, I enjoyed individual scenes. That's the thing. That it's like, oh, okay, the fight scene with Doomsday, like, okay, that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
How did that fit into the plot? It was just tacked on. I enjoyed, just individual moments in the film, but they just were like, oh, here's from this and here's from this, and let's just throw it together and call it a movie. It didn't feel cohesive at all.
Yeah. Civil War. What were your thoughts on that?
It made up for Batman versus Superman. It basically did everything that Beavis should have done. It juggled multiple characters extraordinarily well. Every single character had a purpose in the film. They all had their own agendas and personal goals that, with their own little through lines and that had good resolutions. So you clearly understood why every single character chose to do what they did. And every character had a moment to shine. The tone, it was a serious movie. I mean, there were some serious themes that were discussed in it.
Mm-hmm.
And in some respects, it was the same themes as Batman versus Superman, as far as should these superheroes, these enhanced individuals, go unchecked? Does the government or a government have the right to inflict their authority on people just because they have extraordinary powers? Does that take away from their liberties and their freedoms? But if left unchecked, what damage can they do? And what's the collateral damage? Both movies talked about that. Batman vs. Superman forgot it. Partway through, it just, who cares about that? They set up something really good, no payoff. Civil War, that was the theme through the entire movie, and they developed it really well. It was a long movie, but it didn't feel long.
Right.
It had its weight to it, but it was funny throughout the movie. And it wasn't funny because it was a comedy. It was funny because of the character situations, some of the dialogue, but it was mostly, the coming from a pure place because these characters were so well defined. And the biggest difference, though, is that with Civil War, of course, it had this long history of movies now, and you really understood what the relationship between Tony Stark and Steve Rogers was if you've watched all the films.
Mm-hmm.
With Batman versus Superman, yes, we know who Batman is because of all the other iterations. We don't necessarily know who this Batman is. We've never seen Wonder Woman on screen. And Superman, we've had one movie with him. And so now Batman and Superman are just meeting for the first time. Lex Luthor is just being introduced. Wonder Woman is just being introduced. And yet the characters from the beginning are at odds and have to learn to overcome that. How they overcome it is too quick and just absurd. With Civil War, you have friends who are now at odds, and there's this emotion that goes with it because now their friendship is being ripped apart because of choices that each character makes. And it's not because, oh, I'm kidnapping your mother and forcing you to go fight, which could have been extremely easy to resolve. How it should have ended, handle it really well. But with Civil War, there's no easy resolution because in real life, not that we should apply real life to superheroes, but with with realistic characterization, they don't always have a happy ending where everything is all neatly tied up. And I like that.
Right. Going back to the kind of the pacing of the movie, it was a little more serious in the beginning. Like the first, I could be wrong on the time, but the first, I'd say, third of the movie felt much more serious than any other Marvel film.
Yeah.
But once they introduced Spider-Man and they had the whole exchange between him and Tony Stark, which I loved.
Yeah.
Tom Holland was excellent as Spider-Man. It's funny because a friend of mine mentioned this. Marvel did Spider-Man better in 20 minutes than Sony did in 5 films combined.
Yep.
And that's
by the way, I'm a fan of the Sam Raimi films.
Yeah.
The first Andrew Garfield one was okay. I mean, it was good, but it was a retread. And obviously, Spider-Man 3.
And Amazing Spider-Man 2. But no, I thought once that happened, the humor kind of introduced itself back in. And then with Scott Lang coming in, which that I won't spoil what he does in the fight, but the whole thing was just so good.
Excuse me.
Oh, no worries. The scene at the airport, that fight was one of, if not the best fight scenes I've ever seen, because it's this one big fight, but there are individual things happening.
Yeah.
And they all got their, like you said, little moment to shine.
And if you contrast that with the fight with Doomsday in Batman vs. Superman, which it just seemed like a lot of noise and violence. It was just like, okay, just pounding. Instead of, like, Black Widow has a line in Civil War, about, I'm paraphrasing, do you think that you're going to be able to solve this by punching? That's what it felt like with Superman in Batman versus Superman, where here it's like they were reluctant to fight, but they were forced into it because of their own choices. And like I said, there was emotion behind it. Tony Stark, I felt for him because technically he's the antagonist in the movie.
Yeah.
But I completely understood where he was coming from, and I felt bad for him. Where... not so much of the other film.
Well, Tony Stark and Steve Rogers had this conflicting opinion, but you understood why they each felt that way. And that's what I thought was great, was it was truly you just pick whatever side of the opinion you agree on. And it's not so clear-cut, black and white. And kind of going to the new characters that were introduced, both Black Panther and Spider-Man were phenomenal. I'm super excited for Black Panther's movie now.
Me too. Yeah, and once again, the casting was just perfect. I mean, he was able to just get all the different nuances of the character, and you really felt like that was that person. Even if you knew nothing about Black Panther, in this movie, this was his origin story, basically.
Yeah.
And you completely understood who he was and where he's coming from, and now hopefully we can go into a solo film and enjoy that.
And seeing the post-credit scene and just seeing Wakanda was just, it was awesome. You see the giant panther statue. And,
spoiler.
Yeah. Well, mild spoiler. I didn't say what happened. I just said you see it.
Well, that nuclear explosion was kind of a surprise.
Yeah, when just the movie ended and it said no more Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Right.
It was awesome. DC fanboys rejoice.
When Ultron resurrected and just blew up, succeeded in blowing
Oh,
up
God.
humanity. Yeah.
I did not like that movie. Last movie, everyone loves Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think of Force Awakens?
Well, I'm like everybody else. I absolutely loved it. Actually, there have been a few people that did not like it so much, but overwhelmingly, people did enjoy it.
But most people I know that don't like it either just don't like Star Wars anyway, or they say, oh, it's just a remake of A New Hope.
Right. Which structurally, which is fun. Actually, kind of funny because one of the panels I did at Alcon was looking at story structure based on the original trilogy of Star Wars, and just kind of walking through the plot and looking where the beats hit and how they structured those three films, and kind of talked a little bit about, okay, people say Force Awakens was A New Hope, and I was arguing, no, it's not. But then when you look at the structure, it's pretty close.
It is.
The structure is the framework is there. However, getting back to the characters, the character choices and who they are as people are very different than what we saw in A New Hope. And the characters make it a different story. If it had been another Luke Skywalker who was raised on a farm and had dreams of going elsewhere, and then, and was the innocent, naive, and I mean, if they had gone with that route and it was just a clone of Luke, then yes, I would say we've seen this story already. But Rey is such a different character, and where she's coming from, and even though there's a lot of similarities, being raised basically as an orphan on a desert planet, but she's looking at waiting for her family to come back, but she's also tough. She has skills because she's had to fend for herself. Luke was a farm boy. I mean, he was just, okay, he lived in the desert, but he was still a farm boy that just grew up on a farm and wanted adventure. And Rey was not that. She had to fight to stay alive. And so with the choices that she did and where she was coming from, that led the story in different directions. And also, Kylo Ren was, even though there's obviously similarities between him and Darth Vader, there's actually more similarities between him and young Anakin. Yeah. And which I think it was Lavon French from the 501st said, and I think she was the one who said it, that she wishes Adam Driver had played Anakin because I mean, he basically got that character what Anakin should have been, and so it kind of made up for that. But yeah, I really had very little problem with what I call the echoes from the first
and I didn't either.
At first I was like, oh, they're not going to do this, are they? With BB-8 and giving the whatever the plans ended up being. At the time I didn't know. It's like, oh no, they're doing this exact same thing. But even BB-8 was so different than R2 that it's like, it's going through kind of the similar paces, but it's such a different character that there's a big contrast between what the characters in one movie went through and what the characters in the next one did.
Yeah, I totally agree. I went opening night, loved it, saw it 3 more times in the theater after that. It has its similarities, yes, but it's different enough to me where it's not just a copy of the same thing. I'm interested in where Rey, Finn, Poe, and even Kylo Ren go from here. What are some things you would like to see happen in Episode 8?
I would like to see Leia get more screen time. I really liked the scenes, very brief scenes that she and Han had together. It was unfortunate that Han and Luke did not get any screen time together.
And I thought about that after.
And I'm hoping that Luke and Leia get screen time. I like the fact that Leia was now a general and was in charge of everything pretty much. But I would still like to see a little bit more of her interacting and taking a more a lot of the focus was on Han in this film. I would like to see her kind of in that similar role in the next film.
No, because Leia has always been that character that maybe is a little overlooked compared to like Han or Luke or even like Chewie or the droids. I never really hear anyone talk about Princess Leia. Yeah. So I think that would be cool. And one thing I would love to see is some Sith training or dark side training that we haven't really seen. Like we've seen the Jedi Temple in the prequels. We've seen steps that a Jedi has to take. Well, what is it like on the other side?
Well, we saw a very brief glimpse of the Knights of the Ren. Yeah. And I feel like that needs to be explored more.
Yes. And I think it'll be one of those things where Luke will tell Rey what happened. And I don't know if you've read them, but there are some. There's one crazy fan theory out there that I don't think is true, But
That Jar Jar Binks is actually the supreme leader.
almost as bad. No, I don't think this is a spoiler just because it's a theory or it's an alleged story. There's a theory that Rey is the reincarnation of Anakin. And that it's the quote-unquote chosen one is born whenever the Force is thrown out of balance. So Anakin wasn't the only... And I had the exact same reaction, too. Like, it would make a cool what-if story, but I don't think that's the route they should go, because I think it would confuse too many people.
Well, first off, the prequels kind of misstepped by introducing the midichlorians and when trying to have a scientific explanation for mysticism.
Mm-hmm.
If you introduce reincarnation suddenly in the 8th film in the series, I'm afraid that's for a lot of people is going to jump the shark.
Yeah.
Like, oh, now they're doing reincarnation. Oh, okay, whatever. I'm not even going to bother with this. Not that to say that it couldn't work in the story, because we have ghosts, basically Force ghosts, and the case could be made that the energy from the Force is keeping them alive because nobody else exists in that form after they die. They're dead.
Yeah.
So what's to say that energy couldn't go into a new being that's being born? I just think that's a little bit lame.
Yeah. One thing I think that would be kind of neat and would be a nice contrast is if Rey actually ends up being the granddaughter of Obi-Wan. Like, say Obi-Wan has a relationship between episodes 3 and 4, then they have, say he has a daughter, and then his daughter has Rey, so she's the granddaughter. So I think it would be kind of a neat little thing where it's a Kenobi trained a Skywalker for 2 generations, and now the tables have turned.
Yeah, I want her to be the granddaughter of Grand Moff Tarkin.
That would be fantastic. You may file when ready. So, is there anything you'd like to plug? Like, we've plugged your books. You have
books.
Facebook, Twitter. Do you have any of those social media machines?
My website is stephenjwise.com, and Stephen is spelled with a PH. So I had to add the J in there because Stephen Wise was going to cost .com was costing like $500 or something.
What?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess someone really liked my name.
I guess so.
Yeah. So like me on Facebook, and find my author page, and it's I think it's facebook.com/Stephen Wise Author is the website for that. I send out little email announcements every so often. Haven't done one in a little while, but I'm going to have to do that. I've recently kind of redesigned some things, so I need to get working on that again. Go find my books on Amazon and buy them. put a little money in my pocket.
Yeah.
I think I've made all of about $4 off of Amazon so far.
What's a start?
Yeah.
So Steve the Wise was taken? SteveTheWise.com?
I didn't even try that. Yeah.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah. Yeah. My professional name, I go by Steven.
Fair enough.
My friends call me Steve, but although I've had a couple friends who insist on calling me Steven for some reason. That's your name. Well, whatever.
That's whatever they want to call you, I guess.
Yeah. At least it's not like my cousins who call me Stevie.
Yeah, that's true. All right, Steve. Well, thanks for coming back on the show. It's always fun talking with you.
It was fun. I enjoyed it. Thank you.